The tires spit gravel as the car screeches away, its taillights shrinking into the pitch-black abyss of the deserted highway. The laughter still rings in my ears, Rachel's cackle the loudest of them all. Let's see how long it takes him to crawl back. The words cut deeper than the cold air slicing through my jacket. I stand there, watching as the glow of their car fades into nothing, leaving behind a hollow silence so absolute it feels like I've been buried alive. I don't chase after them. I don't shout. I don't pull out my phone to call Rachel or any of her so-called friends. Instead, I do something that would haunt them more than any angry outburst ever could. I smile. They expect me to break, to stumble my way back, humiliated and desperate, begging for their mercy. They think I'll endure whatever fresh hell they decide to put me through next because I always have. Because that's what Mark does. The reliable husband. The patient fool. The quiet, obedient man who takes their cruelty and turns the other cheek. Not tonight. The air is razor-sharp against my skin, but I don't shiver. The road stretches empty in both directions, just an endless black void with no signs of life. No passing cars. No streetlights. Just me and the sound of the wind whipping through the trees. I glance at my phone. No signal. Of course. They planned this. Not just the ditching, but the where. Miles from civilization, just isolated enough to make it difficult but not impossible to find my way back. They want me to struggle. They want me to suffer through the cold, the hunger, the exhaustion. They want me to crawl back to them, humiliated, grateful that they finally allowed me to return. They think this is funny. Rachel thinks this is funny. The woman I married, the woman who once looked at me with adoration in her eyes, has become a stranger. She's changed, hardened. The cruelty started small. Backhanded comments disguised as jokes. Passive-aggressive remarks in front of her friends. Mocking me in ways that didn't sound mean at first but left a sting long after. Then it escalated. The laughter at my expense. The eye rolls. The dismissals. The way she let them tear me down, joining in like she wasn't once the woman who swore she loved me. Now this. I breathe in the cold air and let it settle inside me, turning the anger into something sharper, finer. Rachel and her friends expect me to crawl back. I won't. Instead, I turn. Not toward home. Not toward them. But toward the unknown. And I start walking. The first few miles, I walk in silence. Not because I'm in shock, not because I'm lost, but because I need this moment. Every step I take away from that highway is another chain snapping loose. Another brick in the wall of my old life crumbling to dust. Rachel thought she was making a point. That I was a joke to be laughed at. That I was weak. She has no idea. By the time I see headlights in the distance, my body is exhausted, but my mind has never been clearer. I step onto the shoulder of the road and extend my thumb, not out of desperation, but calculation. A man alone, walking in the dead of night, will raise questions. A man hitchhiking? Less so. The truck slows. The driver, a middle-aged guy with a face that's seen long nights and too many cigarettes, leans over. Where you headed? Not home. Anywhere but here. The ride takes me far enough to reach a real town. Not some gas station off the highway, but an actual city with banks, hotels, and the one thing I need more than anything, an exit. Inside the bank, the fluorescent lights hum as I hand over my ID. The teller barely looks at me. I withdraw everything. Every last cent. A lifetime of savings, cashed out in crisp bills that feel heavier than they should. The woman hesitates before handing over the money. Sir, are you sure you want it? Yes. She doesn't ask again. Outside, I take my phone from my pocket and scroll through my contacts one last time. No hesitation, no second thoughts. Just action. I press down hard on the power button. The screen flickers, then goes black. Then I drop it into a storm drain. The sound of plastic hitting metal echoes up before vanishing into the darkness below. One last tie to the life I'm leaving behind. I pull out my wallet, remove every credit card, every traceable link to my past, and snap them in half. The pieces drop into a nearby trash can. No phone. No cards. No way back. Rachel is going to panic. At first, the calls come in with predictable arrogance. Oh, come on, Mark. Are you really doing this? Then the texts. Mark, grow up. Okay, it's been a few hours. You proved your point. Where are you? Mark, I swear to God, if you're trying to make me feel bad, you're wasting your time. By nightfall, the shift happens. Please just answer me. Mark, I'm serious. Where the hell are you? Call me. Now. Then, silence. Her friends are still laughing at this point. Oh my God, he's trying to play the victim. But he's sitting at a diner somewhere, waiting for us to beg him to come back. They think this is temporary. A tantrum. But Rachel? She knows better. And when the police call her asking if she's seen me, if I've come home, if I've been heard from at all, that's when the laughter stops. That's when she realizes she's the one being ignored. That's when she understands. I didn't get left behind. I left her. The first few days, Rachel plays it cool. She doesn't report me missing, not right away. That would be admitting weakness. Instead, she keeps up the charade, telling herself a story where she's the one in control. He just needs time to sulk. He's being dramatic. He'll come crawling back when he realizes how stupid he's being. But then Monday rolls around, and I don't show up for work. By Wednesday, my landlord calls to ask why my apartment is empty, cleaned out as if I was never there. No clothes, no furniture, not even a single damn toothbrush left behind. By Friday, Rachel is calling my parents. Hey, have you guys heard from Mark? They haven't. And that's when it hits her. I vanished. The cops don't take it seriously at first. They listen to Rachel's forced concern, nodding along as she tells them, I just think he's trying to teach me a lesson. They ask if we fought. She laughs too hard. Oh, no, it was just a silly little thing. A misunderstanding. His phone probably died. By the time she finishes talking, she's convinced herself she's right. Then the officer asks, has he accessed any of his bank accounts? Rachel blinks. What? His credit cards? His phone? Has he used anything? She doesn't have an answer. Because I haven't. No credit card charges. No ATM withdrawals. No phone activity. No social media check-ins. Mark Dawson doesn't exist anymore. Week 2, the panic sets in. Rachel starts texting my old friends, but most of them are more her friends now, people she slowly pushed me toward over the years while I lost touch with my own. No one has heard from me. At work, she's visibly unraveling. She used to be the woman who laughed the loudest at office parties, the one with the perfect Instagram life. Now she's the woman who lost her husband like a set of keys. People start whispering. Why would he just disappear? She's not telling us something. Do you think she was, abusive? Rachel overhears it all. She wants to scream at them. Tell them I was the pathetic one. That I was weak, boring, always so sensitive. That I was the problem. But she can't. Because I'm not there to take the blame anymore. 3 weeks in, she caves and hires a private investigator. A young guy, mid-30s, too expensive but highly recommended. The kind of guy who usually digs up cheating husbands and missing assets. She hands him a picture of me, already half convinced he'll come back with proof that I'm shacked up with some other woman. She wants that to be the answer. But he finds nothing. No mistresses. No trail. No Mark Dawson. She goes home that night and pours herself a drink. She checks my old Instagram, knowing she won't find anything but still hoping. Maybe. She stares at the last post, one from months ago. A picture of us. Smiling. She scrolls through the comments. People used to say we looked good together. That we were goals. Now, there's silence. She takes another sip, then stares at her own phone. No new messages. No calls. Nothing. She left me stranded, expecting me to come crawling back. Instead, she's the one left behind. And I? I watch from a distance, sipping my own drink in a place she'll never find me. And I don't feel a damn thing. Rachel always thought she was untouchable. The center of attention. The one people gravitated toward. The leader of the group. But the thing about a fall from grace? No one wants to be standing too close when it happens. At first, her friends act like nothing is wrong. They laugh it off. Mark's probably just off licking his wounds. They joke. Maybe he finally grew a spine. Too bad it's too late. They tell her, give it time. He'll resurface. But then, time keeps passing. And the whispers start. Rachel's friend group was built on a foundation of cruelty, mocking others, tearing people down, turning pain into entertainment. And now? She's the joke. You hear about Rachel? Her husband just disappeared. Vanished. I bet he left her for someone else. Or maybe she drove him to it. Rachel hears them, but no one says it to her face. Not yet. The first real crack happens at brunch. It's a crisp Sunday morning, mimosas on the table, the usual idle gossip circling. But Rachel can feel it. The shift. The way their eyes dart away when she looks up. When she tries to chime in on a joke, no one laughs. When she starts complaining about Mark, the room goes stiff. Then, without warning, Megan, one of her closest friends, says, come on, wretch. Maybe you shouldn't have left him stranded in the middle of nowhere. It's light, casual, a throwaway comment, but it detonates inside her like a bomb. The conversation moves on. No one defends her. No one says she was right. And that's when Rachel realizes she's alone. At work, it's worse. Corporate America loves gossip, and Rachel's disappearance act with Mark has turned into an office-wide joke. She catches people smirking behind their coffee mugs when she walks past. She hears the hushed murmurs, the not-so-quiet whispers. One day, in the break room, she overhears it directly. She lost her husband like a set of keys. The laughter stabs through her spine like an ice pick. Rachel was the one who laughed at others, who made the jokes. She was never supposed to be on the receiving end. She grips her coffee cup so tightly it nearly cracks. But she doesn't say a word. The drinking starts as a way to take the edge off. A glass of wine after work. Then two. Then a bottle. She used to be the life of the party. Now she drinks alone. She stops going to the gym. Stops keeping up with her appearance. Her roots start to show. Her skin dulls. The glow, the effortless confidence she used to radiate, is gone. Her work starts slipping. She forgets deadlines. Misses meetings. Her boss pulls her aside, voice gentle but firm. Rachel, I don't know what's going on with you, but you need to pull it together. She nods. Says she will. She doesn't. One night, she sits in her apartment, staring at the only thing left of Mark, an old photo. It's the two of them, years ago. A vacation in the mountains. Snow in the background, his arms around her, both of them smiling. She swipes through more. At first, she looks for proof. Proof that he was weak. That she was right to treat him the way she did. But the longer she looks, the harder it gets. Because all she sees is a man who loved her. A man who was patient. Who put up with things no one else would have. A man she didn't just push away. She destroyed him. And now? Now he's gone. Not just missing. Not just lost. But erased. She finally understands what that means. Mark isn't coming back. And for the first time in years, she feels something real. A deep, suffocating, gut-wrenching grief. But it's too late. And the worst part? She did it to herself. 5 years. 5 long, merciless years. Rachel barely recognizes the woman staring back at her in the bathroom mirror. Her once pristine blonde highlights are long gone. Her roots overtaking them with dull, lifeless brown. Fine lines press into her forehead, stress and time carving their mark. Her eyes, once bright and sharp, are hollow. She used to have everything. A husband, a social circle, a reputation. Now, she has a one-bedroom apartment in a part of town she used to sneer at. A job she barely holds on to. And a gnawing, relentless emptiness. It started with the divorce. At first, she resisted. Clung to the last shred of denial that Mark was really gone. But how do you stay married to a ghost? The paperwork arrived in the mail, signed, sealed, legally severing her from the man she abandoned on that highway. It was supposed to be a wake-up call. A clean break. A chance to move forward. But Rachel never moved on. Because some nights, when the world was quiet and the loneliness sat heavy on her chest, she thought about him. About how he left so completely. How he never once tried to reach out. How she was the only one left searching. And then, one evening, when she least expects it, she finds him. It happens by accident. Rachel is scrolling through Instagram, half drunk, half numb, clicking through a former co-worker's vacation photos. Sunsets, drinks, a group of people laughing in a bar. And then, she freezes. In the background of a blurry group shot, behind the main subjects, slightly out of focus. There he is. Mark. Her heart slams into her ribs so hard she nearly drops her phone. It's him. But not the man she remembers. He looks different. Stronger. Broader. His jaw sharper, his expression calm. At ease. Dressed well. Confident. Rachel stares at the screen, unable to breathe. She blinks, refreshing the image as if it'll somehow change. But it doesn't. Mark Dawson is alive. And he looks happy. Rachel's hands shake as she clicks through the post, desperate for context. The location tag is a city she doesn't recognize. The person who posted it isn't someone she knows. There's no mention of him in the caption, no way to tell if he was just passing through or if. No, this can't be random. She spent years searching, years following dead ends, years wondering if he was even still alive, and now here he is, thriving. While she's been, her stomach churns violently. It's not fair. It's not fair. She's the one who suffered. She's the one who paid the price for what happened that night. She lost everything. Her marriage, her friends, her reputation. And yet he, the one who disappeared, who abandoned her, gets to be happy? No, she won't accept that. Her fingers tighten around her phone, her mind racing. She finally has a lead. She finally has a chance. Mark might have erased himself from her world, but she's about to break into his. Rachel's hands are clammy as she scrolls through her contacts, her heart hammering inside her chest. The private investigator did his job. Weeks of searching, digging through records, following the digital breadcrumbs that Mark had so carefully erased. Every dead end, every false lead, every moment of gut-wrenching frustration, until finally, a breakthrough. A name, a location, a new life. Mark Dawson wasn't just alive. He was thriving. The town is small, one of those quiet places tucked away from the chaos of the world. A town where people live and die without ever making a ripple. And Mark? He's there. Rachel stares at the report, her breath shallow as she reads the details. A local business. A house under an alias. A completely rebuilt identity. He didn't just leave. He rebuilt. A different man, a different life. A life without her. She clenches the papers in her hands, her vision blurring with a mix of emotions she can't even name. How dare he? How dare he move on like this? Like she never existed. Like the years they spent together were meaningless. He was hers. No matter what happened, no matter what she did, he was hers. And now? Now he was someone else. Someone who had erased every trace of her. Rachel's fingers tighten around her phone. She has his number. A direct line to the man who disappeared off the face of the earth. And he doesn't even know. Her pulse spikes as she presses call. The first ring drags on endlessly. The second. The third. Then, voicemail. Her jaw clenches. She redials. Nothing. She calls again. And again. And again. Her breathing turns shallow, her hands shaking as she watches the missed call count tick higher. 5 calls. 10. 23. Nothing. Mark isn't answering. Not even to tell her to leave him alone. Not even to acknowledge her existence. Her mind reels. Did he recognize the number? Did he know it was her? Is he sitting there, staring at the screen, choosing to ignore her? A fresh wave of panic claws up her throat. She calls again. And again. And again. By the time she stops, the screen glares back at her with an obscene number. 77 missed calls. Rachel feels like she's going to be sick. She has never been ignored like this. Never been discarded. This isn't just silence. This is erasure. Mark isn't just avoiding her. He's proving a point. And for the first time since the night she left him on that highway, Rachel finally understands what it feels like. Rachel grips the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turn white. The small town around her feels suffocating. It's too quiet, too still, like something frozen in time. A place where people know each other, where nothing stays secret for long. But Mark had made a secret out of himself. She spent weeks chasing him through digital ghosts, dead leads, and the unbearable silence of his rejection. 77 missed calls, and not a single answer. So she did the only thing left. She came to find him herself. The cafe is small, tucked between a bookstore and a barber shop, the kind of place people come to sit and linger over coffee rather than rush out the door. Rachel stands just outside the window, her breath fogging the glass as she scans the room. And then, there he is, sitting near the back, a cup of coffee in one hand, a book in the other. Mark. Her lungs tighten at the sight of him. He's different. Not just physically, though that's undeniable. He's leaner, stronger, his posture more relaxed, more confident. He looks like someone who sleeps soundly at night. Like a man who doesn't carry the weight of their past anymore. She swallows hard. This isn't the Mark she left behind. And the realization slams into her like a truck. He doesn't look like someone who missed her. Rachel steps inside. The bell above the door chimes, a soft, innocent sound, but in her head, it's deafening. She walks forward, her heels clicking against the worn wooden floor. The scent of coffee is thick in the air, but her stomach churns. She stops just in front of his table. Mark. His fingers pause on the page of his book. Slowly, he looks up. Their eyes meet. For the first time in years, she's staring into the eyes of the man she used to control. The man she used to mock, dismiss, belittle. The man who disappeared. Her heart is racing so hard she feels dizzy. Say something. Say anything. Mark blinks once. Then, he goes back to his book. Like she's nothing. Rachel feels the blood drain from her face. Mark, she says again, more forcefully this time. I've been trying to reach you. He turns a page. Calm. Unbothered. Like she isn't even standing there. Rachel grips the edge of the table, her breath uneven. You're just going to sit there and pretend I don't exist? Finally, Mark exhales through his nose, more of a sigh than anything else. I'm not pretending, he says simply. Rachel flinches. It's not anger. It's not bitterness. It's nothing. She would have preferred rage, hatred, anything over this indifference. This isn't the reaction she imagined. She pictured him shocked, struggling for words, unable to look away from her. Maybe angry at first, but then relieved. Maybe even happy to see her again, to realize that, despite everything, she was here. But this is annihilation. Rachel's throat is dry. Can we talk? Mark closes his book and leans back slightly, studying her. Then, without any hesitation, no. Rachel's breath catches. Mark, I have nothing to say to you. The words are delivered with no venom, no emotion at all. And that's what kills her. Not only did he move on, he doesn't even care that she hasn't. Rachel stares at him, desperation clawing up her spine. I know I hurt you. The words taste like acid coming out. But it's been 5 years. We were married. That has to mean something. Mark tilts his head slightly. Does it? She opens her mouth, but nothing comes out. Because for the first time in her life, she doesn't know how to manipulate the conversation. She doesn't have the upper hand. Mark doesn't hate her. But worse than that, she doesn't matter to him anymore. And that terrifies her. Rachel's hands tremble as she grips the edge of the table. This isn't how it was supposed to go. Mark was supposed to be shocked, angry, maybe even relieved. He was supposed to feel something. Instead, he just sits there, like she's an inconvenience. A stranger interrupting his morning routine. Mark, she pleads, lowering her voice. Please. Just talk to me. For a moment, he says nothing. The cafe hums around them, baristas calling out orders, the low murmur of conversation, the clinking of spoons against porcelain. Normal sounds. Unremarkable. But Rachel's world is cracking. Then, finally, Mark exhales, as if debating whether to humor her or not. Talk about what? His tone is casual, distant. Rachel swallows hard. I just need to say I'm sorry. Mark leans back in his chair, expression unreadable. Sorry for what? Her jaw tenses. She hates that she has to say it out loud. That she has to spell it out like a child confessing to breaking a vase. But she forces the words out anyway. For that night. For leaving you out there. For, she exhales shakily. For everything. Mark stares at her. Then, he laughs. Rachel freezes. It's not a cruel laugh. Not bitter, not sharp. It's almost amused. Like she just told a joke. She blinks. What's so funny? Mark shakes his head, a smirk tugging at his lips. You think I disappeared because I was hurt? Rachel opens her mouth, but nothing comes out. Mark leans forward, resting his arms on the table. His voice drops, quiet but razor-sharp. No, Rachel. I disappeared because I was finally free. Her chest tightens, her stomach twisting into knots. What? Mark shrugs. That night? It wasn't the worst thing you ever did to me. His voice is calm. Matter of fact. It wasn't even in the top 5. Rachel feels herself shrink. I left because I wanted to, he continues, like he's explaining something simple. Because for the first time, I realized I didn't have to be yours anymore. He tilts his head. And I haven't regretted it once. The words hit like a sledgehammer. Rachel's breath stutters. But we loved each other. Mark's expression doesn't change. Did we? She stares at him, her vision blurring. "Rachel," he says, voice level, "I wasn't happy with you. I just didn't know what happiness was supposed to feel like until I left." He leans back, picking up his coffee again. "And now? I do." Rachel feels like she's falling. The guilt, the shame, the regret, it all swallows her whole. She came here thinking this would be a reckoning, that she'd find Mark bitter, resentful, maybe even waiting for her without realizing it. Instead, she found a man who didn't need her, a man who never needed her. Her voice cracks. "You never even missed me?" Mark looks at her, expression unreadable. Then, finally, he answers, "No." Rachel breaks. This isn't how it was supposed to go. Rachel's breath is ragged, her pulse pounding so hard she can barely hear over it. This is slipping away. He is slipping away. She can't let that happen. "Mark," she whispers, voice raw. "We had something real." He doesn't respond. Doesn't even blink. She grips the edge of the table, knuckles white. "I was horrible to you. I know that. But I loved you. I still do." Mark tilts his head slightly, watching her the way someone might watch a distant storm. Unconcerned. Unmoved. Then he shakes his head. "No," he says simply. "You didn't." Rachel flinches, like he just slapped her. "Yes, I did." Mark exhales through his nose, setting his coffee down with careful precision. "Rachel," he says, voice even, almost patient. "You didn't love me. You loved the power you had over me." She stares at him, her throat tightening. That's not true. He just looks at her. And in that moment, Rachel knows. It is true. She remembers the way she used to talk down to him, how she used him as a punching bag for her own insecurities, how she humiliated him in front of her friends, how she enjoyed knowing that no matter how cruel she was, he would never leave. She took him for granted, because she thought he was hers. Tears burn at the edges of her vision. But her voice cracks. "I need you, Mark." Something flickers in his eyes. Not pity, not sympathy. Understanding. He nods. "Yeah," he says. "I know." Rachel's chest tightens, hope sparking for a fraction of a second. Until he finishes. "That's why I left." She gasps, like the air has been punched out of her lungs. Mark keeps going, his voice level. "You don't love me, Rachel. You love owning me. And when I walked away, you lost something you never thought you could control." Rachel shakes her head rapidly. "No, that's not." "You left me on that road," he continues, unflinching. Laughing. "You wanted to break me." He leans in slightly, his gaze locked onto hers. "But Rachel, do I look broken to you?" Rachel's lips part, but she has nothing. No snide remark. No manipulation. No power. Because he's right. This was never about one night. It was about everything that led up to it. She pushed and pushed, never fearing he'd leave. Until one day he did. Rachel's whole body is trembling now. Her mind is racing, searching for something to hold on to. Because if this is real, if Mark is gone, then what does that leave her with? Nothing. Desperation takes over. "Mark, please," she whispers. "I can change." For the first time, something flashes in his expression. Amusement. It's quiet. Almost imperceptible. And then he stands up. Rachel's stomach twists into knots. "No, Rachel," he says. "You can't." She sways slightly, like the ground beneath her is shifting. "You don't mean that." But he does. She can see it. Mark looks at her for a long moment. Then, finally, he exhales. And Rachel sees it. The finality in his eyes. The absolute, unshakable truth. He's already gone. And she's the only one who didn't realize it. Mark stands. Rachel panics. She can feel it slipping through her fingers. He is slipping through her fingers. This is it. This is the moment. If he walks out that door, she knows, deep in her marrow, that she'll never see him again. Her body moves before she can think. She reaches out and grabs his wrist, her fingers clutching onto him like a drowning woman grasping at driftwood. "Wait." Her voice is thin, desperate, barely above a whisper. "Please, just tell me you felt something when you saw me." Mark doesn't pull away immediately. He just looks at her hand on his wrist, like he's debating whether or not to acknowledge it. Then, slowly, his eyes lift to meet hers. Rachel's breath catches. For the first time since she walked into this cafe, she allows herself to hope. Maybe there's still something left. Maybe all this coldness, all this distance, is just a defense. Maybe, deep down, he does still care. She waits, heart hammering, fingers tightening around his skin. Mark tilts his head slightly, studies her. Then, finally, he speaks. I felt. His voice is quiet, unreadable. Rachel leans in. Then, nothing. Her heart drops straight through the floor. Mark gently, effortlessly, pulls his wrist from her grasp. Rachel stands there, frozen, like her entire nervous system has shut down. No, 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 no. She expected anger, bitterness, a fight, something. But this? Nothing? It's worse than hatred. Hatred means she still matters. But this void, this complete and utter absence of feeling, means she's already dead to him. Rachel's fingers twitch at her sides. Her throat burns. Her knees threaten to buckle. Mark doesn't wait for her to recover. He grabs his coffee, his book, and without another word, he turns and walks toward the door. Rachel wants to stop him, to scream, to do something, but she can't move. She just stands there, watching the man she once owned, once controlled, once humiliated, walk away without a single glance back. A minute later, the cafe door swings shut behind him. And just like that, he's gone. Rachel collapses into the chair he left behind. Her hands cover her face, but no tears come. Because what's left to cry for? She thought if she found him, she could fix this. That she could rewrite the past, make him remember what they had. But she understands now. The past is the past. And Mark Dawson? He's never coming back. Mark steps outside, the cold morning air brushing against his skin as he moves toward the sidewalk. He doesn't rush. There's no urgency, no lingering thoughts pulling him back. Just the steady rhythm of his footsteps, carrying him forward, just like they always have. Behind him, Rachel is still in that cafe, probably still sitting in that chair, frozen in the reality she never wanted to accept. And for a second, just a second, he almost keeps walking. Almost. Then something shifts in him. A quiet resolve. And against every instinct, every piece of himself that wants to leave her in the past where she belongs. He stops, turns around. Rachel is still there, visible through the glass window, staring at nothing, her hands gripping her lap like she's trying to hold herself together. She looks up. Their eyes meet one last time. Mark steps closer, just enough so she can see him clearly. See the certainty in his expression, the finality. And then, in a voice steady and calm, he gives her the last words she'll ever hear from him. You left me stranded, thinking I'd crawl back. But Rachel, I never crawled. I walked away. A pause. His gaze sharpens. And I never stopped walking. Rachel's lips part, her entire body going still, like she's just been erased from her own story. Mark doesn't wait for a response. He turns. And this time, he doesn't look back. He slips into the crowd, his figure blending into the moving bodies, swallowed by the city, disappearing the same way he did 5 years ago. Only now, Rachel knows. There's no searching for him. No chasing. No bringing him back. This time, it's not her leaving him behind. It's him leaving her. For good. Rachel doesn't remember how long she sits there. Minutes. Hours. It doesn't matter. The cafe moves around her. Baristas calling orders, customers coming and going, the clinking of cups, the hum of conversation. Life continues, indifferent to her collapse. She grips the table, staring at the spot where Mark sat just moments ago. He's gone. Really gone. No anger. No regret. No longing. She thought there would be something left to salvage, some ember of the past that could be reignited. But there's nothing. Not in him. Not in her. Only the weight of a reality she was too blind, too arrogant, to see. She did this. She thought she was playing a game back then, laughing as she left him stranded, convinced he'd suffer, that he'd crawl back humiliated and grateful for whatever scraps of affection she decided to give. She never expected this to be the outcome, that she would be the one stranded in the end, that he would be the one to walk away and never look back. Her hands shake as she pulls out her phone. Her call log is still open from before, the screen mocking her with the numbers staring back at her. 77 missed calls. Her throat tightens. She had spent years waiting for him to call, for him to reach out, for him to show any sign that she still existed in his mind. And now? Now his number is blocked. Not by her. By him. A sharp, painful breath escapes her lips. For so long, she thought this would end differently, that she'd find him, break through whatever walls he had built, make him see her again. But she wasn't searching for Mark. She was searching for the man she used to own, the man she could manipulate, the one who needed her. But that man no longer exists. She destroyed him, and in his place, a new man was born, one who would never let her touch him again. Rachel lowers the phone onto the table, staring blankly at the screen. For the first time in her life, she understands what true, permanent loss feels like. Mark is never coming back. She can keep searching, keep waiting, keep replaying their past in her mind. But it won't change the truth. Some things, once broken, can never be fixed. And she'll have to live with that for the rest of her life.